Good morning. I would like to bring the January 2021 Planning Advisory Commission meeting to order. Official start time of this meeting is 9 a.m. If you would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. If you'll turn around, there's a flag actually behind the glass there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. If you would, please silence or turn off your cell phones. Today we're operating under much different circumstances as most meetings are now being held. We have some commissioners that are watching by television or YouTube, and they will be forwarding questions to me via text. So I will have my phone here. It is silenced, but I will be using that to communicate with the two commissioners. We'll also have citizens calling in via phone with questions and/or comments. So we ask those watching here and by other means to be patient as we move these cases forward. The phone number which to call is 706-225-3937, and it should be scrolling on your screen for those that are watching remotely. I remind those in the audience and those watching on TV that this is the first hearing of any rezoning, text change, or special exception request brought before us today. We'll first hear a reading of the staff report for the case by the planning staff and ask the applicant to provide a brief overview of their request. We will then give the opportunity for anyone in the audience to speak for or against that request or to inquire about the said request. The commissioners will have any needed discussion on the case. Once a motion is made and seconded by the commission, a vote will take place and a recommendation will be rendered. The case will go back to the planning department for their independent recommendation. If a favorable recommendation is given, then the case is forwarded to the city council with the two independent recommendations. If the planning department makes a recommendation for denial, the applicant will have 10 days from the receipt of letter stating the denial to notify the clerk of council that they are requesting to be placed on the city council's agenda. The City Council of Columbus will hold a public meeting called the first reading. Said council shall consider the case, review PAC and planning department recommendations, and hear discussions on the matter. Council will make a final decision at the second public meeting called the second reading. All right, that brings us up to our first case today, which is REZN-12-20-3086, a request for a text amendment to amend the text of the UDO in regards to amending Table 2.1.1.
Yes, sir. Explanation of revision, amend Table 2.2.1 by deleting townhouse and multifamily and condo in the historic zoning district, and explanation of revision number 2, amend Table 2.2.2 by deleting townhouse and multifamily and condo in the historic zoning districts. This is basically just to clean up the UDO. This has actually been in effect, the condo side of it, since 2014 and the multifamily since 2008.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions? Okay. And since the planning department is the applicant, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak for or against this text change? If not, do I have a recommendation? Anyone?
In the case of REZN-12-20-3086, a request to amend the text of the UDO, specifically amending Table 2.2.1, deleting townhouse and multifamily and condo and historic, and also amend Table 2.2.2 by deleting townhouse and multifamily and condo in the historic district. I make a motion that we recommend approval.
Do I have a second? Okay, all in favor, Raising your right hand. It is unanimous. All right. Thank you. All right, our next, and we have votes from Mr. McCaskey and Dudley in approval. All right. All right, our next case is REZN-12-20-3087, a request to rezone 9.77 acres of land located at 2730 Manchester Expressway. Current zoning is NC Neighborhood Commercial and SFR 3 Single Family Residential 3. Proposed zoning is GC General Commercial. Proposed use is mixed use, hotel, retail, grocery, restaurant. Cotton Companies is the applicant. The property is located in Council District 8, Garrett.
Yes, excuse me. Yes, sir. General land use is inconsistent for planning area D. Current land use designation is general commercial. Future land use is office and professional. It is compatible with existing land uses. The property does not lie within the floodway and floodplain area. The developer will need an approved drainage plan prior to issuance of a site development permit. If a permit is required, the property is served by all city services. Average annual daily trips will increase by 2,391 trips if used for commercial use. The level of service will remain at a level C. The site shall meet the codes and regulations of the Columbus Consolidated Government for commercial usage. There'll be no school impact, no buffer requirements, no Fort Benning recommendation, no DRI recommendation. The surrounding zoning, north is general commercial, south is general commercial, east is I-185, west is neighborhood commercial. Attitude of the property owners. 65 property owners within 300 feet of the subject properties were notified of the rezoning request. The planning department received no calls and or emails regarding the rezoning. As far as additional information, we have proposed with the developer to condition this property to be completed in phases, and those conditions are as follows. The property shall be developed in 3 phases. The phase 1 shall include a hotel only. And number 3, a traffic study shall be required before phase 2 is started.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions of the planning department? All right. If the applicant would please come forward and state your name and address and explain what you're doing here, please.
Sure thing. With your permission, I can remove the mask?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Chris Woodruff with the Cotton Companies. We are based out of 1230 Broadway in Columbus, Georgia. I'm representing F&B Company, which is I'm part owner in as well. F&B Company is a Columbus-based development company that's been around since about 1972. The property that we're talking about is the old Holiday Inn. Everyone may remember this. It was a Holiday Inn from 1968 until about 2015, when it switched flags and became a Clarion. The tenant, the property itself was ground leased, so we, F&B Company, really had no control. The tenant at the time defaulted, and we removed them. And in order to help absolve a lot of blight and potential crime issues, we demolished the existing hotel structure in 2019 with the plan to ultimately come back and redevelop at some point in time. What we are proposing with the city's help is this idea and concept of a 3-phased approach. The property was previously used as a hotel, and it was grandfathered into NC prior to, I guess, 2000 and something or other. It went from commercial to C3 and then to NC. So historically, the site has always been a hotel. What we're asking is to go to GC so that we can implement phase 1, which would be the sale of this parcel to a hotel developer, develop that lot, and then proceed forward with the further development of the remaining 6.88 acres. Ultimately, the goal here is to create something that is a windfall for the city, for the inhabitants of the city and to really take an incredible opportunity site and turn it into something that can be a vast benefit to the people of this community.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions?
Question. So on phase one, nothing's going to be done until, or nobody's going to be living on the hotel, utilizing the hotel premises until 2 and 3 are done? I'm concerned about the safety of the personnel coming into the hotel while the construction, if in case 2 or 3 is not done yet.
That's an excellent question. So the idea here is the hotel is one of the anchor tenants of this development. In order for a hotel to exist on this property, they must be zoned GC. So the thought is to lock in the hotel developer, allowing them to construct under a GC zoning. At that same time, simultaneous, grading will be occurring, and a infrastructure will be implemented so that we do have access roads and secure areas where there is delineable hotel site versus pad-ready sites for sale.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you. Do we have anybody in the audience that would like to speak in favor of this? Are you in favor? I am. If you would please come forward and state your name and address. No, if you'll come over to this one, please, and when you get to the mic, you can remove your mask so we can hear you clearly.
Good morning. I'm Vaughn Bray. I own an adjacent property at 4334 Armour Road. On phase one, it abuts at an angle. Phase two, it's a neighboring property. After meeting with Mr. Woodruff and discussing the phases, the proposal, I am very much in favor of this development.
Okay. Commissioners, anybody have a question?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak in favor of this? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak in opposition? All right. Commissioners, do I have a recommendation?
I recommend this motion to be approved when it comes to REZN-12-20-30-87 and request to rezone 9.77 acres of land located at 2730 Manchester Expressway, current zoning from neighborhood commercial and SFR 3, proposed zoning GC, general commercial, proposed is used for mixed use for the hotel, retail, grocery, restaurant. I recommended this motion to be approved.
Okay, do I have a second? Okay. All right, all in favor, if you'd raise your right hand. All opposed, saying it's unanimous, and Mr. Dudley voted in approval. All right, so that case is approved. All right, that brings us up to case REZN-12-20-30-3088, a request to rezone .95 acres of land located at 2744 Warm Springs Road. Current zoning is RO residential office. Proposed zoning is GC general commercial. The proposed use is convenience store with gas sales. Lakshmi Karthik is the applicant. The property is located in Council District 8, Garrett. Mr. Renfro?
Yes, sir. General land use is inconsistent for planning area D. General commercial, future land use is mixed use. It is compatible with existing land uses. The property does not lie within the floodway and floodplain area. The developer will need an approved drainage plan prior to issuance of a site development permit if a permit is required. Property is served by all city services. Average annual daily trips will increase by 111 trips if used for commercial. The level of service will remain at B. The site shall meet the codes and regulations of the Columbus Consolidated Government for commercial usage. The site shall include a Category C buffer along all property lines bordered by the SFR2 zoning district. Those three options on a Category C are 20 feet with a certain amount of canopy trees, understory trees, and shrubs, ornamental grasses per 100 linear feet. 2, 10 feet with a certain amount of shrubs, ornamental grasses per 100 linear feet, and a wood fence or masonry wall, and 3, 30 feet undisturbed natural buffer. No recommendation from Fort Benning, no DRI recommendation. The surrounding zoning to the north is neighborhood commercial, south is SFR2, east is SFR2, and west is residential office. 100 property owners within 300 feet of the subject's property were notified of the rezoning request. The planning department received 2 calls and or emails regarding the rezoning. Those were 2 in opposition. We actually got 1 additional phone call late last night that was concerned just with the buffering requirements, since his property was right up next to the parcel that's being rezoned.
And the other 2, did you have any details on their opposition?
No, well, they were just concerned about traffic and how the driveways that would be entering, exit the site.
Okay. All right. Commissioners, any questions for the planning department? All right. If there are none, if the applicant would please come forward, state your name and address, and tell us about your request.
Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Lakshmi Karthik. I'm the applicant for 2744 Warm Springs Road, and I'm applying on behalf of my clients who are here at the meeting as well. So basically, they're trying to open a convenience store gas station because they found an opportunity that there is none on that street, and that would also kind of help the neighborhood. So you all have any questions on that?
Okay. Commissioners, anyone have any questions? All right. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak in favor of this request? If you would please come forward. State your name and address, please.
My name is Robert Wood. I live at 4101 Armour Avenue, directly adjacent to the property at 2744, although I did have a couple of questions, specifically related to the buffer, since my property is directly next to the construction. Currently, I have a privacy fence that does not extend all the way to the road. I was actually planning on replacing that and actually adding a piece of fence. So I didn't know what the buffer would be as far as height, material to delineate, because my driveway is actually on that side of the property of where the gas station will be placed. That was my first question.
Okay. Mr. Dove, can you answer that?
As far as buffer, they have the 3 options that I stated in the review. They obviously can't meet the 30 feet undisturbed natural buffer. They'll have to, I would assume that they're going to go with category 2, which is 10 feet with a certain amount of shrubs, ornamental grasses per 100 linear feet, and a wood fence or masonry wall. So that will be required for them to.
Okay.
To.
And what is the requirement as far as how far? Does it extend all the way to Armour Avenue? Or is there a particular, the property line length is approximately 190 feet.
Right.
I didn't know if it was the entire length of the property line.
It will be the entire length of the property line minus setbacks on the road. So
Okay.
obviously, if there's 10 or 15 feet that go into the property, they won't be able to put a fence there.
Okay. And then the second question I had was, are there requirements as far as the dumpster location for the property? My concern is that the dumpster would be placed in the back of their property, which would be right on the other side of the fence from my property. Is there a requirement as far as that dumpster being placed closer to the actual gas station, or is there anything that will dictate where that goes?
Normally, since this doesn't fall in an overlay, we don't require it to be covered or sheltered in this location. But normally, they're placed in the back, and engineering handles the location of that.
Okay.
During the actual design and build process of that.
Okay. All right. Those are the concerns that I had. Thank you.
Commissioners, any questions of this individual? All right. Do we have anyone else that would like to speak for or against this? If you would please come forward and state your name and address.
Good morning. I'm Perrin Nicholson. I'm a lawyer here in town. I'm here on behalf of Martha Robinson, who owns property directly across Armour Avenue from this, a residential duplex. We have some concerns about this property being developed as a convenience store, particularly if it's going to be a 24-hour-a-day operation. This is a residential street, residential neighborhood. The lighting, convenience stores by necessity have got very bright lighting, which would not be compatible with the use of residential property across the street or next door, like Mr. Woods. If you look at the zoning map, there is no GC south of Warm Springs Road until you get on the other side of the bypass or way back down towards town. We think this is inconsistent with the land use. We think it's spot zoning. We don't think it complies with the comprehensive plan. We don't think it's suitable for the neighborhood. Hardaway High School is right down the street. I'm not so sure how the traffic people get their levels of service. Some parts of the day, there's nobody on that street. But school's not in session now with all the COVID, but when regular schooling is going on early in the morning, 3:30 in the afternoon, Armour Road is full of school buses and people that are leaving. Because of the sight lines on Warm Springs Road, it would be very difficult to take a left turn onto Warm Springs out of this convenience store. It's so close to the traffic light, and traffic would back up, so that's going to put more traffic on Armour Avenue, which again is more of a disturbance for the neighbors, and particularly the property across the street. You can have the privacy fence, which may protect you from the people next door, but nothing to protect the people across the street from the lighting. So we just add that the applicant says that there's no other, there's substantial reasons why the property cannot or should not be used as currently zoned. I'm not so sure what those reasons are. There's doctor's offices up and down that street. There are plenty of other uses that they could put to, that this property could be put to besides a convenience store, which will not be compatible to the neighborhood.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions? Yes. Commissioner Thomas.
Okay, you're sounding like this is a very congested area. From what all you're saying, it's very congested.
Well, I don't know if you've been there or not, but Armour Avenue, when you approach Warm Springs Road, it's going up a hill, a slight hill. There's a traffic light there. The traffic, many hours of the day, it flows very well. But in other times, particularly in the morning, school traffic, and in the afternoon, school traffic, it's very congested. In the afternoons, Warm Springs Road, there are a lot of people heading out of town on Warm Springs Road, commuters. And again, that just means it's anybody leaving that road is going to, that convenience store is going to have to turn on Armour Avenue, which is a fairly narrow two-lane road. It's not meant for traffic like this. It's been residential forever. And we just don't think it's compatible. And the lighting, if this is a 24-hour-a-day operation, the noise and the lighting for people across the street and next door, we just don't think it's compatible.
Okay. Commissioners, any other questions? Mr. Esteros.
There was a church in there,
There was a church.
and it's been demolished. Half of it is already gone. And so people, it's not like a vacant lot, there's nothing been there before, so people used to left turn in there before. So doing it again.
But the church was operated on Sundays, and their driveway was further down Warm Springs Road from the proposed driveway here. This driveway is much closer to the intersection than the church's driveway was. The church was operating on Sundays when there weren't that much traffic. And it was and for limited hours. So I think this is a whole different operation as far as the traffic goes and the congestion that's going to be caused.
All right.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Would the applicant like to speak to those questions?
I think if the ingress and egress is one of the concerns as far as it being closer to the traffic light, we can try to make some modifications so it is not as close to the traffic signal, so it'll be a little more convenient for people getting in and out, if that would help.
Okay.
We can do some modifications in the plan.
And I'm assuming this will be a 24-hour operation?
I would say yes. No?
If you could, please come up to the microphone and state your name and address. You can remove your mask temporarily, thank you.
Hey, my name is Minas Patel. It's going to be open 6 to 11, 6 a.m. to 11
To
p.m.
11 p.m.?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak for or against this case?
I just wanted to comment as far as the lighting. The UDO handles the lighting side of that, and all lighting now is required to be faced downward and cannot actually go on any other person's property. It can't be aimed or tilted that towards someone else's property.
Right. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other questions or discussion? Do I have a recommendation?
Well, I was going to ask Mr. Renfro
Okay.
a question. As far as the driveways and whatnot, is that's something that they would get approved or work with engineering to?
Their original application had a different site plan. It was sent to engineering. They sent it back and said that the driveways needed to be adjusted, so we sent it back to the applicant. She worked with their architect and engineer, and they sent out this plan. Engineering reviewed this and said this was sufficient.
Okay.
So it's really, if approved, it is up to them in engineering to whether they want to move it further down the road than what it currently is.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Brand. Commissioners, any other questions or discussion? All right. Do we have a recommendation? Mr. Esteras.
All right. When it comes to REZN 1-12-20-3088, request to rezone 0.95 acres of land located at 2744 One Springs Road. Current zoning is RO, residential office. Proposed zoning, general commercial. Proposed use is convenience store with gas sales. And I will add the provision that is not going to be open past 11. I recommend for this motion to be approved.
So you, excuse me, you want to condition it so that it's closed from 11 o'clock at night until 6 o'clock in the morning as a condition to the rezoning?
Yes, according to the owner's
Okay.
previous notice.
Mr. Renfro, is that a condition that we can actually place on that?
It's not typically something that we like to do, but technically you can do it.
Okay. All right. We have a motion. Do we have a second? A second from Mrs. Thomas. All right. All in favor, raise your right hand. All right. It is approved. Thank you. Give me 1 second to, Mr. Dudley says yes. All right, that brings us to our next case, which is REZN-12-20-3178, a request to rezone 0.5 acres of land located at 1421 6th Avenue. Current zoning is LMI, light manufacturing industrial. Proposed use is UPT Uptown. The proposed use is mixed use retail restaurant. Cotton Companies is the applicant. Property is located in Council District 7, Woodson. Mr. Renfro.
Yes, sir. General land use is consistent in Plan and Area D. Current land use designation is mixed use. Future is high-density mixed use. It is compatible with the existing land uses. The property does not lie within the floodway and floodplain area. The developer will need an approved drainage plan prior to issuance of a site development permit if a permit is required. Property is served by all city services. Average annual daily trips will increase by 458 trips if used for commercial usage. The level of service will remain a level A. The site shall meet the codes and regulations of CCG for commercial usage. There'll be no school impact, no buffer requirements, no Fort Benning recommendation, no DRI recommendation. The surrounding zoning, the north side is LMI, light manufacturing industrial, and then south, east, and west is UPT, which is uptown. 25 property owners within 300 feet of the subject properties were notified of the rezoning request. The planning department received no calls or emails regarding the rezoning.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions? Planning Department? All right. If the applicant would please come forward and state your name and address again, please.
Long time no see. Hello again, guys. Ladies and gentlemen. Chris Woodruff with the Cotton Companies, 1230 Broadway, Columbus, Georgia. Okay. Thank you, Bruce. Perfect. Thank you, Bruce. Subject property is the former Unita Glass Company building on 6th Avenue. It is a 0.5 acre lot that is 95% taken up by the actual building itself. Property is zoned currently LMI, which was conducive for the previous user. You will note that currently the zoning surrounding the property is primarily UPT. Directly east of the subject property is Swift Lofts, about 70 units, residential multifamily units, plus about 60,000 square feet of office. Directly north of the property is Metro Power, which is an office user. South is Gallery 143, which is a retail establishment. And to the north, Lot 7 in Block 16 is the new Stumpy's Hatchet Throwing. The area itself in this part of town is being redeveloped and rebuilt, reestablished. The hope and desire for the Cotton Companies is to rezone this property as UPT so that we may proceed forward with a mixed-use development, which would allow for retail, restaurant, and any questions?
Okay. Commissioners, any questions? You can get your microphone, please.
Can you tell me what kind of restaurant? Is it a chain or a locally owned restaurant?
Depends on who you know. You got somebody to put in there? No, all kidding aside, we have not gone forward with the full development scope on this. All of this is contingent on rezoning. So once we, if we hopefully do succeed in rezoning this to UPT, we will begin the process of soliciting requests from potential tenants. So whatever we put in there as far as a restaurant will be conducive for the neighborhood and for the market of Columbus. So the idea is to bring something that can land in this location that everyone in the city can go to and enjoy.
That's great.
All right. Thank you.
Great question, though.
Commissioners, any other questions? All right. Thank you. Do we have anyone in the audience that would like to speak for this case? Do we have anyone that would like to speak against this case? All right. Being that there are none, Commissioners, do we have a recommendation? Mr. Brandon?
Sure. In the case of REZN-12-20-3178, a request to rezone 14216 Avenue from LMI to Uptown because it is compatible with existing land uses. I recommend, or I move that we recommend approval.
Okay. Do we have a second? We have a second.
I
Thank you.
second.
All right. All in favor, raise your right hand. All All right, it is unanimous. Mr. Dudley voted in approval. All right, that is approved. Thank you.
Thank you all for your time today.
All right, our last case is REZN-12-20-3180. A request to rezone 2.31 acres of land located at 3518 Gentian Boulevard. Current zoning is NC, Neighborhood Commercial. Proposed zoning is RO, Residential Office. Proposed use is apartments. David Realty Company is the applicant. The property is located in Council District 5, Crab. If the applicant would please come forward and state your name and address.
Staff report first.
I'm sorry?
Staff report first.
I'm sorry.
Not a
Staff
problem.
report, Mr. Renfro.
Yes, sir. General land use is consistent, planning area E. Current land use is general commercial, future land use designation is mixed use. It is compatible with existing land uses. The property does not lie within the floodway and floodplain area. The developer will need an approved drainage plan prior to issuance of a site development permit if a permit is required. Property is served by all city services. Average annual daily trips will increase by 638 trips if used for residential. The level of service will remain level B. The site shall meet the codes and regulations of CCG for residential usage. The site shall include a Category C buffer for all property lines bordered by the SFR2 zoning district. Those three options on a Category C are 20 feet with a certain amount of canopy trees, understory trees, and shrubs, ornamental grasses per 100 linear feet, 10 feet with a certain amount of shrubs, ornamental grasses per 100 linear feet, and a wood fence or masonry wall, and 30 feet undisturbed natural buffer. There's no Fort Benning or DRI recommendation. The surrounding zoning, north is RO, south is RO, east is RMF2, west is SFR2. 30 property owners within 300 feet of the subject properties were notified of the rezoning request. The planning department received no calls or emails regarding the rezoning.
Commissioners, any questions for the staff report? All right.
Good morning.
Applicant, thank you.
How are y'all?
Good morning.
I'm Rob McKenna. I'm with Page, Scranton, Price, Tucker, and Ford, and I represent UV Phase 2 LLC, who's the actual applicant on the petition. I know it's listed as Davis Realty Company. They are currently the owner of the property. We have that property under contract to purchase, and we're doing this rezoning in connection with that. So the applicant intends to extend the existing University Crossing apartments, which are right behind this property to the south, into this property and put a access point onto Gentian Boulevard. So it'll be, you've got property to the east that is currently apartment use, although it's zoned RMF2. You've got property, this is the proposed site plan. I guess I'll pull that down a little bit. So the property we're talking about is right here, all of this. Essentially what the existing apartment complex is up here. And we'll be adding 4 more buildings. 2 of the buildings will be on the existing property, and 2 of the buildings will be on the property that's subject to the rezoning today, the 5 acres. So there will be a buffer all the way around. The property down to the west side is unused. It is currently just trees, and I think the college actually owns that, but I'm not positive about that. And then across the street are also apartments. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right. Thank you. Commissioners, any questions? All right. We have one person in the audience.
That's my client.
Is that the applicant? All right. I was assuming that, but I didn't want to assume officially. All right, so I'm assuming we don't have anyone to speak in favor or in opposition. Commissioners, if there's no other questions, do we have a recommendation? Mr. Esteras.
When it comes to REZN-12-20-3180, request to rezone 2.31 acres of land located at 3581 Genton Boulevard. Current zoning neighborhood commercial, proposed zoning residential office. I propose that this motion be approved.
All right, do we have a second? All right, okay, thank you. All in favor, raise your right hand. All right, it is unanimous. Thank you,
Thank y'all.
appreciate it. All right, is there any new business that we need to discuss?
Not currently. The next meeting is going to be February the 17th.
Okay. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn? Okay, have a second? All in favor, right hand. Thank you, we are adjourned.